It's time once again for America's favorite show, The Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd. Brought to you by drfloyd.com.
The year is 1948. The place is Chicago. The building is the Chicago Daily Tribune. The foul figure fleeing through the shadows of the alley is Dr. Steve, our hero's arch-nemesis. The sock-shaped silhouette slinging along behind him is Fidgert, his assistant. The stack of newly printed and pilfered papers in Dr. Steve's ink-stained hands are several copies of the historically famous Dewey Defeats Truman edition of the Chicago Daily Tribune. Dr. Steve plans to sell the taken tabloids on eBay once he returns to the year 2004.
Quickly, Fidgert, to the ship. We must make the jump through space and time. I need to work out a little bit more. I'm much too winded from this short of a run.
Dr. Steve and Fidgert are racing back to their ship, which has recently been outfitted with a time and space travel device that was burgled from the world's most brilliant scientist, Dr. Floyd. At this very moment, Dr. Floyd and his protege, Dr. Grant, and their faithful robot companion, C.H.I.P.S, are racing through time and space to try and stop Dr. Steve.
I assume Dr. Steve is going to try to do something with those Dewey Defeats Truman misprints.
That brute! What are we gonna do?
Dr. Grant, do you still have your Mr. Pickles practical joke kit?
Yeah, but I don't understand why you would need...
Just get it out! We're coming out of the time and space jump now! I know, Chips, I know! Trust me, I did it on purpose!
Dr. Floyd's ship comes out of the time and space rift, and it is then that Dr. Grant realizes that they have come out in 1948, before Dr. Steve and Fidgert have.
Wait, we're here in 1948 before Dr. Steve and Fidgert.
Yes, now grab that practical joke kit and follow me!
Now let's rocket back to the future, but in the past. The time that Dr. Steve and his assistant Fidgert are in. They are just running up the gangplank to their time ship with a stack of stolen Dewey Defeats Truman papers.
We're home free, Fidgert. We've got a whole stack of at least 100 Dewey Defeats Truman papers. We'll make a fortune on eBay. And this is just the beginning. We've got a whole history of history to pillage. Look at that headline, Fidgert. Isn't that beautiful? Dewey Defeats...
Just then, right before Dr. Steve and Fidget's eyes, the headline and the rest of the printing on the papers disappear, leaving Dr. Steve holding a stack of blank newsprint.
What is going on here? They're blank. They're all blank. How?
This is how, Dr. Steve. Thanks to this!
There at the bottom of the gangplank stood Dr. Floyd, Dr. Grant, and C.H.I.P.S, and in Dr. Floyd's hand was a now empty bottle of the Mr. Pickles Super Practical Joke Disappearing Ink, which they had dumped into the printing press before making a jump to the moment Dr. Steve was at, which is where we are now.
That's right, Dr. Steve. And now I'll just come reclaim my space and time travel device.
Not if I can help it, Floyd.
At that moment, Dr. Steve hurled the stack of now blank papers at Dr. Floyd, and it cut him square in the chest. Then he fell back into Dr. Grant and C.H.I.P.S. Then the evil villain pressed the button to raise the gangplank, and our heroes were locked out. Fidgert fired up the engines of the evil black ship, and it began to hover. Dr. Steve rolled down his window and leaned out, shaking a fist at Dr. Floyd below.
This isn't over, Floyd. Thanks to your device, I have an entire history of the universe to play in, and that's what I'm going to do.
And we'll be right behind you every step of the way, Steve!
There was a blinding flash of light and a whiff of ozone, and Dr. Steve's ship was gone.
Don't worry. We'll get him, Dr. Floyd, as long as we have you and your brilliant mind.
Oh, I know, Dr. Grant. It's just too bad that we had to make the newspapers print with disappearing ink. Now Truman can never hold up a copy in that famous photo, and history is forever changed. We have to be more careful that we don't let Dr. Steve make any changes to history.
But history hasn't changed, Dr. Floyd. Look here.
Dr. Grant held up a blank newspaper in front of Dr. Floyd, who was amazed to see the headline along with the rest of the print returning to the newspaper.
But how?
Look at the small print on the bottom of the label of the ink bottle. Mr. Pickles' Super Practical Joke Disappearing Ink, which reappears after the joke is over because we don't want anyone to lose anything important.
Well, I'll be. What will they think of next?
I don't know, but I'm sure it won't be as cool as what you think of next, Dr. Floyd.
Aw, shucks. Well, anyway, I think we should get back to the ship and start tracking where Dr. Steve has gone next.
And with that, our fearless heroes jump back into the time and space stream to track Dr. Steve. Where will they wind up next? Be sure to tune in next week for the continuing radio adventures of Dr. Floyd.